particular now have over 175 million immigrants and refugees worldwide. So every major post-industrial democracy, every major developing country, every major continent in the world today is experiencing large-scale migration.
How do we promote for the school success of language minority students? And in particular, how do we promote for the school success of Latino population students in this country?
Well, I've been in America for 5 years, and I was born in Brazil, in a small city called São José dos Campos in São Paulo. When I came here, it didn't really affect me that much. It just gave me like a shock because I never thought that I would face like a second culture, you know, like a different culture than what I learned my whole life, the first 12 years of my life. So I learned how to deal with it, you know. It's in the beginning, like kids, when they are very like ignorant, they don't know what they're doing or what's happening around them. I heard lots of like, oh my god, when are these Brazilians gonna get out of here and everything. So it was kind of like very saddening for me because I never thought that I'll like hear such things. But I learned how to I don't know, just kind of like overhear that, you know, like when you hear something, sometimes you put down in your heart and sometimes it just goes through your ear. That's what basically happened. I learned how to just not listen to.
As a counselor, the first initial thing I did struggle with kids dropping out.
They're dropping out of school for reasons. First, they have to be disengaged. They stop going to class, they figure class isn't important to them, and they ultimately drop out.
What was most discouraging was that every month I gave these tests, and every month my kids would fail consistently. And the type of school that I was in was definitely a failing school as far as student scores, and I knew that by the end of the year they were going to get this high stakes test. They weren't going to do well.
The schools in the new society are really the first and most important point of contact for immigrant children with members, with an institution of the new society.
Very valuable kids in our school. They give us a lot of diversity. They're hardworking. They're motivated kids, and they have a nice zest for living too.
We're pushing towards educational success because we can in fact do it. The question is, does policy want to recognize the fact that we can, or do they want to have a reserve army of labor there, you know, to promote the status quo? We see a large shift from, into the service economy, where a lot of these kids are ending up taking jobs in restaurants, taking jobs in sectors of the economy where they're not going to have much social mobility.
My father came here to the United States in 1994. He stayed here to work. He stayed for 2 years, then he came back. He worked like with the papers and stuff, and he brought us, the whole family. I've been here since 2000. I work at a restaurant, Seafood Champion.
I work here, Mojo Photo, and I work basically every day after school, but on Fridays because I work as an intern.
I work at a hotel and I do about 40 hours per week. I work and study. It is hard, but you have to try to get a good future.
So let's stop talking about failure and start talking about success.
High school just made me like want to, keep growing even more so I can go to college and get better everything.
I'm going into medicine, and that's what I will do because I don't know, I really, since when I was 2 years old, I wanted to do it.
Don't drop out because education is a big part of your life. It's just your future, and you're the one who decides whether or not you want to be something.
So the movie club was one of the first activities that I ever did, and the movie and being able to act in front of people and being in the movie movie was shown to all the 8th graders, and that kind of got me out there to do more activities, and that inspired me to not be so shy sometimes, to be able to speak in front of people, to be able to advocate and to be able to be a leader and not a follower. And that's how I started, kind of. That's how all my activities started.
We think in terms of engagement as really constituted by three distinct domains, what we call cognitive engagement, what we call relational engagement, and what we call behavioral engagement.
The stories that come through in film and come through in theater that are reflective of the various and diverse cultural groups in the community are another way for schools to become kind of connected to the communities that they serve.
It was really great being in this movie. It shapes you, and it basically makes you, I don't know, a very lived person.
One of the things that I think is so important about film, using film and media with students, is the opportunity for their own self-expression, for their own sort of creativity, both in the intellectual realm and in the emotional realm.
It was going to be like a new experience for me, something I never did before. I like to draw, so I thought it was going to be nice, but when I started, it really got like interesting. I started to like making ideas in my head, like about the movie, what would be nice for the movie, what would be good for the movie. So it was really good to do this. It was a new experience that I wanted to try, like a new challenge.
The final adjustment parts, I think that's what got me the most there, because I like to do that kind of thing. I don't know, the movie, you know, there's always stuff that you have to do. You can't, it's not just filming, there's a lot more to it. There's, you know, editing, and in our case there's the subtitling, which I was involved with.
Another aspect to learning, and it really gets you involved. It's like more and understand that you're doing it as a whole, and everything that you're doing with other people, it's always going to be that you're doing it with them. It's not just you.
This is what we're teaching our kids, you know. It's not just about putting paint on a canvas or putting up a show. It's about assuming responsibility for what happens in the world and the community, and realizing that art is an agent for affecting change.
You also have a youth culture, and it has its values, it has its artistic life, and it almost never has a place in schools. And this, it seems to me, the message that we're sending to kids is that's for outside of school. In school, you take adult culture and mostly Western culture, and you take it as we divide it up and have seen that it's important to represent it. Now, I don't think it's wrong, or I think it's actually extremely important for kids to have a formal setting in which they are introduced to those forms of culture as the dominant culture understands them. But to have that and never have your own culture acknowledged or welcomed into the space is hostile. It's disrespectful.
And I always tell my students, the only antidote to helplessness and to cynicism is getting involved, is actually being engaged in the work, connecting with young people. Because that kind of work is inspiring, it builds on itself, and it creates the concrete sense that we can do something to better the situation. So those who are watching this, I would encourage you, if you are not feeling good about the future, then to get involved and do something, get off your butt.
students go into a situation like this, kind of let them do their thing, let them mold themselves, their characters, their work, whatever it may be, into what they truly want it to be and where they see it going, where they can progress with it themselves. And everyone needs a little push here and there, and just little pointers. But what I think was so good about this project in particular was that it was so student-based. That there was in every single aspect, it was just a lot of involvement that was pushing us. And it really felt like it was a very personal experience, but also the group experience.
By creating an environment where kids feel like they're working together, and if somebody makes a mistake, they can laugh it off and somebody can correct them. Another student even, not just the teacher. And where the teacher becomes part of the class.
Movies or arts in general are just a way of getting students comfortable with themselves about talking in Spanish. I think that kids get self-conscious when they have to stand up in front of a class and do a speech or something. And I think that if you can put them in another role, if they assume the identity of someone else, that they feel a lot more comfortable and they can express themselves.
Pero mucho más hermoso si estuviera durmiendo.
It was a really valuable experience for me. Because art is kind of the basis of culture. And I think that understanding a culture and a language through art is one of the most valuable and easy ways to do it. Music and language and film and all this acting, all this stuff put together gives you kind of a big picture rather than just like rote, like this is how you conjugate this verb and this is what this vocabulary means. It's not a whole learning of a culture and a language. And I think that by combining different aspects, it really adds to the learning experience.
I remember just feeling so proud of this movie and the fact that I had contributed to it. La oscura raíz del grito. And where the arts can just be really inspirational for kids because, they see this thing that they're creating, and almost when they're doing it, they're not really realizing the effects of it until afterwards, until it's finished and other people are noticing it. We're seeing it on the big screen, and I think people, not just the students, but the faculty and the community was like, wow, they really did it.
Yeah.
They made a movie.
I did a part of the movie last year, and I didn't speak any English, so now I'm speaking like a little bit more. It was really nice. I love it, so I really want to do it again, and I recommend for everyone.
Tengo hambre.